Are you looking for a new shaver, but ain't sure whether it should be a Philips or a Brown? Then you've come to the right place. We've taken a closer look at the different series of those two big brands. As always, you'll find everything you need to know in this video, so just stay tuned. Here we go. Let's get started with our comparison of the Philips and Brown shavers. Included are the most popular series from the two brands. For Philips, these are the Series 3000, 5000, and 7000, as well as the Series 9000 Prestige. For Brown, it's the Series 3, 5, 7, and 9 Pro. There is one major difference that we'll mention right away, and that's the price. As you can already imagine, the prices are increasing. Starting with the inexpensive Series 3 and 3000 for around €50 up to the high-priced Series 9 Pro and 9000 Prestige, which cost several €100. The links to the products can be found below the video in the description. And if you want to find out more details about one of the shavers, check out our individual reviews as well. Enough of that. Let's start with our features and technology section. First thing we gotta say is that we have a different operating principle comparing these machines, and this is the first big difference between the two brands. The Philips devices traditionally use the so-called rotary principle, which means that they have a total of 3 rotating blades arranged in a triangular pattern. Brown appliances, on the other hand, are so-called foil shavers. This type of razor is characterized by the rectangular blade block and the use of shaving foils to protect the skin. The number of blades can vary considerably. Series 3, 5, and 7 each have 3, while the 9 series even has a 4th blade. Both Philips and Brown try to design their machines in such a way that they adapt as well as possible to the facial features. With Philips, the blades are built into movable plates, and the shaving head is also flexible. The blades in Brown's machines form a coherent system, but are also movable, and to a large extent independently of each other. Moreover, with the 7 and 9 Pro series, the shaving head is also movable. In contrast, what the two manufacturers' shavers have in common is that they can be used for both dry and wet shaving, and are also waterproof, which means they can also be used while showering. Only the Brown Series 3 is designed for dry shaving only, but this is due to our product selection. If you want, you can also get the shaver in the wet and dry version, easily recognizable by the blue coloring. When it comes to the battery life, the Philips series in particular stands out positively. They all come with a decent battery life of 60 minutes. The Series 3000, 5000, and 7000 need just as long. In other words, 60 minutes to fully recharge. If you're running low, there's even a quick charge function, which charges for 5 minutes and gives you enough power to complete a short shaving cycle. Only the Series 9000 Prestige falls a little behind here, as it is anything but quick, with a charging time of 180 minutes and a 18 minutes quick charge feature. In this case, all Brown devices are better, as the quick charge function is also designed for 5 minutes. With a charging time of 60 minutes, they are in no way inferior to the Philips devices. However, the running time is somewhat problematic. Only the Series 9 Pro reaches the standard of the Philips machines. The Series 5 and 7 are somewhat weaker, but are still okay. In our opinion, the Series 3 is underpowered at 30 minutes. What's more, the Series 3 only has a basic battery indicator, so it's not particularly easy to predict when the appliance needs to be plugged in. The other Brown series are much better equipped in this respect with multi-level displays in dot, bar, or line form. Philips has also thought of multi-level battery displays across the board, and the 9000 even has a detailed percentage display. A mains operation is only found on the dry version of the Series 3. This has been omitted on all other devices for safety reasons, simply because of the wet use. Accordingly, the shavers will not work when they are in charging mode. It is therefore all the more important that the battery cannot discharge accidentally. For this reason, the devices from the Series 5 and 5000 upwards also have a safety lock. Simply press and hold the power button for a few seconds, and nothing can happen, even in a suitcase or travel bag. Only the Series 3 and 3000 lack this feature, but in this price range, we think this is still acceptable. The Philips 3000, 5000, and 7000 shavers have an integrated precision trimmer for fine trimming or pre-trimming. It can be folded out when required and is simply pushed back into its original position when the job is done. The same applies to the Brown Series 9 Pro, which has a trimmer that can be pushed out. With all other shavers, the trimmer, if one is included, is designed to be attached. As far as the built-in features are concerned, however, the matter is very clearly price-oriented. If you opt for one of the cheaper shavers, namely the Series 3 or 3000, you essentially have to make do with the basic device, as no special features have been built in. If you pay a little more and get the 5000, you also get a hair density sensor that adjusts the cutting performance to the beard density. Instead, Brown Series 5 only has a blade replacement and cleaning indicator on top. Don't get me wrong, the hair density sensor is also available for Brown, but only in the Series 7. So from our point of view, the Brown series is slightly behind in terms of performance. Accordingly, the 7000 from Philips steps it up a notch. In addition to the hair density sensor, it has a special coating that is supposed to reduce friction on the skin, and thus skin irritation. You can expect even more from the two top devices. The Prestige from Philips, for one, offers the option of manually setting the shaving intensity instead of the hair density sensor. You can choose between the sensitive, normal, and fast settings. There's also a more powerful motor, which means you have a bit more power at your disposal. The Brown 9 Pro, on the other hand, comes with an additional blade, the so-called Pro Lift trimmer. This blade is designed to lift the hair a bit more before trimming, which should also make shaving a bit longer beards possible. The device also has a locking switch, with which the otherwise movable shaver head can be partially fixed. This gives you the option of choosing the shaving angle yourself and having a fixed head for areas where this makes sense. As far as accessories are concerned, the shavers can also be generally well-oriented by their price. The lower series are usually simple and may come with a protective cap or similar in addition to the mains adapter. The mid-range series may also come with a travel case or even a cleaning station. In the higher series, the scope of delivery comes closer and closer to being high-quality equipment. Examples of this are the Q-iPad for wireless charging of the Philips 9000 Prestige or the travel hard case with a power bank function for the Brown Series 9 Pro. Ultimately, most shavers are available in different equipment variants, so it is difficult to generalize here. On the whole, however, it can be said that the accessories become more extensive and high-end the further up you go in the series. This is one of the reasons why the higher series can secure good places in our equipment and technology category. We were only surprised by the ranking of the 9000 Prestige, which in our opinion is only in the mid-range. Above all, its little brother, the Series 7000, outperforms the Prestige here. Better values for battery efficiency and the fold-out precision trimmer were the deciding factors here. The 7000 was also the only shaver in our test that can be paired with an app, namely the Philips Groom Tribe app. Only the Brown Series 9 Pro stands above the Philips 7000. In terms of features and accessories, the 9 Pro is simply a little better. And as a reminder, you can find the links to the individual tests and the products below the video in the description. And if the video was helpful to you, please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. We then took a closer look at the shavers in our practical review. In terms of workmanship, there's nothing to complain about here. All parts fit together well and make a well-made impression. With the Philips shavers in particular, it has to be said that the products appear a little more fragile than the rather solid competitor devices from Brown, but ultimately, this only results in a slight deduction. Otherwise, most of the shavers have a slim-handled design. Only the two inexpensive series as well as the Series 9 Pro from Brown look a little clunky. All in all, however, all devices fit well and securely in the hand. In terms of use and handling, the razors benefit from the fact that the blades are movable. This allows them to follow the contours of the face well. Nevertheless, it must be said that each operating concept has its strengths and weaknesses. While the rotary shavers perform better in angled areas, such as the chin, the foil shavers are particularly good for shaving areas like the cheek or under the nose. The disadvantage of rotary shavers in particular, however, is that they are somewhat more difficult to use. While you can more or less just start shaving with the foil shavers, you have to use a special technique with the rotary shavers, which involves going over the hair in small circular movements. Although you get used to this technique over time, it's not always easy to get it right, and can be a bit of a pain over time. Apart from that, there's not much to consider when it comes to the use. All the devices work simply and intuitively. The only thing we would have liked to see in Brown Series 3 and 5 is a movable shaving head in addition to the blades. This would simply make it a little easier for the user to maintain skin contact. The aforementioned precision trimmer is a useful extra in the daily routine. In our opinion, this works very well on all appliances. It's just a shame that the trimmer can only be attached from the top on the Philips 3000, 5000, and 7000 models. If you attach it from below instead, it simply tilts away. The Brown 9 Pro is slightly better at this, as the trimmer is fixed in place after being pushed out. This is also not an issue with the other appliances. where the trimmer head has to be attached and thus also stays in place. A major strength of the Philips appliances is that they are all very comfortable to work with, more so than the Braun shavers. In terms of weight, the situation is somewhat different. Here, at least the Braun 3, 5, and 7 series weigh around 170 to 180 grams. Still ahead of the Philips devices at 190 to 200 grams. However, the other aspects are different. The vibration in the handpiece is more pronounced across the board with the Braun shavers, which you can definitely feel in your hand after a few minutes of shaving. The blades also generate more heat, and, at well over 60 decibels, the volume is also higher. The bottom line is that the two brands are not worlds apart, but it is fair to say that the Philips shavers are somewhat more discreet to use. And now, let's see what our colleague Chris has to say. He put the individual shavers to the test for us in everyday life, and gathered a lot of experience in the process. I've always mentioned a general point in our individual reviews, and of course I would like to do the same in this case. Because here's the thing. After a couple of weeks testing a wide variety of electric shavers, I've come to one key conclusion, and that is, don't believe what the advertising tells you. They suggest that you go over there once and then it's all gone, and that's simply not the case. Regardless of whether you have a machine for 50 or one for several $100. That applies across all devices. So what does that mean exactly? Basically, there are some differences between the individual devices, in the sense of one shaves a little better and the other shaves a little worse. But they all have one thing in common, and that is that they do shave. But in certain places, such as the neck for example, some hair will remain. I would therefore recommend, and this applies to all devices, shave at relatively short intervals, meaning every 1 or 2 days. This is the best way for the devices to cope. If you can't or don't want to do this, then pre-trim your beard at least once, and then just do the finishing touches with the electric shaver. Let's get down to the individual shavers, and I'll go through everything with you. First point, all razors feel very pleasant on the skin. You can say that up front. From my point of view, there isn't one that stands out completely. Nevertheless, you have to classify the whole thing a bit because I think the Philips razors do it a bit better and are a bit more pleasant on the skin. That's not to say that the Braun devices are bad. In my opinion, they are also perfectly fine, but the Philips devices are slightly ahead in the end. The second point is the design of the shaving head, and I picked up an exemplary device for this. This is now the Series 7000, and I think you can see here what I'm getting at. We have a slightly protruding structure between the blade and the end of the shaving head, and that means that if I stand in front of the mirror and want to shave, that I can't see all that well what I'm doing. Of course, that's not so good, so we'll have to consider that. But it has to be said, because we did have a few appliances in our review that have such a somewhat unusual head. Those are Series 7000, the Series 5000, and some Braun devices, namely the Series 5, the Series 7, and also the Series 9 Pro. In this case, the head is a bit angled, which means that if I lean a bit to the side, I can actually see quite well, but it's still a bit of a problem here too. The third point is the feeling of safety, and I think all the devices do well here. At no time did I have the feeling that one of the devices could cut me or anything like that. Only with the Philips 5000 and the Philips 7000 did I have a little pulling sensation once or twice, but that was it, so no big deal. As far as skin irritation is concerned, you can basically say that the Philips products are superior to the Braun products. From my point of view, there are only 2 Braun devices that come close. And that's the Series 9 Pro, as well as the Series 7, which also does a pretty good job. Nevertheless, you have to put this into perspective a little. Let's assume we want to shave with a Braun Series 5. This is a shaver that only received a mid-range rating from us in terms of skin irritation. The question is, do I have to go to rehab if I shave myself with it? The answer is, of course not. You can also shave very delicately with this razor. The only question is what type of person you are. If you are someone who has major skin problems after every shave, then you should consider whether you might prefer one of the Philips series or one of the higher-end Braun devices. As far as the shaving result is concerned, things look a little different. This is where we tend to see Braun appliances at an advantage, especially the slightly more expensive models. In other words, the Series 9 Pro or the Series 7 performed quite well here in our review. The Series 9000 Prestige from Philips was also quite good, coming in third in our comparison. Everything else comes after that. I think it's a bit of a shame that both manufacturers are a bit lacking in the mid-price range. What do I mean by that? I'll start with the Philips appliances, the Philips 5000 and the 7000. And I think there's practically no difference between them in terms of shaving results. And I think that's a bit of a shame. I think they should differentiate themselves more. With Braun, I actually think that the Series 5 shaves even worse than the Series 3. So you could perhaps go for the Series 3, rather than getting lost somewhere in the mid-price range. Now we come to the topic of wet shaving, and this is another point that I think can be answered across all devices, simply because there weren't that many differences between the individual shavers. However, we have to exclude the Braun Series 3 from this, and this is due to our product selection. We only bought the variant for dry shaving. Of course, the whole thing is also available for wet shaving, but we didn't test it, and therefore of course can't include it in our rating. Nevertheless, I can summarize for all other devices. Firstly, yes, you can do it. And secondly, it works. But, and I've already said this in the individual reviews, you also have to ask yourself, does it make any sense at all? And personally, I think that if I'm going to put shaving cream on my face anyway, I might as well use a wet shaver and get a better result in the end. Taking the points into account, it becomes clear that the Philips Prestige is ahead of the rest when it comes to application. Little skin irritation, pleasant on the skin, it is light, quiet, has hardly any vibration. These are all things that set it apart from the other shavers. Only the shaving result is a little behind, and this is exactly the area in which the Braun 9 Pro excels. Although you have to make compromises when it comes to the feeling while shaving, Braun's 9 Pro still came in a respectable second place, with the best shaving result in our test. It is also interesting that 3 devices share the third place, and we see some similarities. The Philips devices tend to emphasize a good feeling of use with less skin irritation, while the Braun Series 7 focuses on a better shaving result. And as a reminder, you can find the links to our individual reviews and the products below the video in the description. And if the video was helpful to you, please leave us a like and subscribe to our channel. To ensure that the shavers can do their job for as long as possible, it is of course important to clean them regularly. To do this, simply remove the shaving element or, in the case of the Philips 3000, 5000, and 7000 series, press a small button to open the shaving head. You then have the option of carefully tapping the whole thing out and then rinsing it under running water. Basically, this is all easy and not a problem. On the other hand, however, we find that the design of the Philips appliances is somewhat vulnerable. You can remove the shaving element with a little bit of force, but we would have preferred a solution like the Braun Series 9 Pro. Here, the blades can be removed relatively easily without any intermediate steps using a pressure mechanism. If you have opted for a model with a cleaning station, you can of course also use the station for cleaning. To do this, you must first insert a cleaning cartridge. After that, it all depends a bit. The Philips stations are a little simpler and cordless, while the Braun stations have to be plugged in, but have a few more functions. The final step is the same for all of them. Simply put the shaver into the station, press the button, and off you go. Cleaning then takes a short moment, and the shaver is fresh again. If the cleaning cartridge runs low, it has to be replaced, which of course means that we would have additional costs. Basically, it should therefore be said that a cleaning station is not absolutely necessary. Cleaning by hand also works very well. Nevertheless, the station is a nice feature, and it is, in our opinion, a pity that you can't get one with all devices. The next thing we want to talk about are the blades themselves. As you may know, they will eventually become blunt. Philips therefore recommends changing the blade system for all series after 24 months at the latest. This is a little more convenient with Braun. At least the Series 5, 7, and 9 Pro have a so-called replacement indicator. Unfortunately, the Series 3 does not have such a function. In the end, Braun recommends changing the blades every 18 months. The bottom line is that we actually have the same basic rating across the board when it comes to cleaning and maintenance. Nevertheless, the higher Braun series can stand out here because they offer 1 or 2 more conveniences than their competitors. These may not be mind-blowing improvements, but they are still there in the end. Let's move on to the results of our comparison. If we count up all the points, we can see that all the shavers achieved a good result overall. All devices scored above an 8 out of 10, which in our opinion is to be expected from such well-known brands. The overall score shows that the individual series are ranked in an ascending order. Basically, you can say that the higher the series, the higher the quality of the product and the higher the price. This is an important aspect of it, which tells us that the shavers are, more or less, clearly differentiated from one another, and that the price-performance ratio should be fundamentally right. Only in the mid-price range, we found that it wasn't conclusive at times, which gives the higher models an additional boost. Accordingly, our winners are arranged as follows. First place goes to the Braun Series 9 Pro, which impressed us in terms of features, accessories, and, above all, shaving results. Second place goes to the Philips Series 9000 Prestige, which scored highly in terms of its comfort and skin friendliness, and even dominated the test in this respect. And our third place went to the Braun Series 7, which doesn't quite come close to the 9 Pro, but in our opinion, is definitely an alternative, especially if you want to spend a little less money. So, we've checked out these electric shavers for you. If you're interested in any of them, take a look at the description below the video. You'll find all the links there. Otherwise, stay tuned, because we have a few more interesting video suggestions in our end card for you.